I haven't talked about it basically all show. We focused on the Cleveland game with Richard and then obviously with Lane. But I know the Ravens struggled this past week too. I watched that game and Lamar Jackson got hurt. There was a bunch of things that were thrown at him. The Chiefs seemed to be quote unquote back. I don't know if they ever left, but people were kind of framing it that way. But that's still a good team. You can't convince me it's not a good team. They were dealing with some injuries, but that was a big win on Monday night there.
Oh yeah. So I was texting people during the game. Even if we lose this game, I'm okay with the Lions season because we punched them in the mouth. 2 years ago, we did not. We got steamrolled, and it was embarrassing. It was kind of like the Packers game was to open the season. It was deflating.
Exactly. You weren't producing the show last week, but when we had Morgan Cannon on of Pride of Detroit, we were talking with him about how basically the last two, they reminded me, I forgot about this, that was one of the worst games in the last couple years, that one that you're referring to, Dan. And then the last game that they played Baltimore, I didn't remember that it was that Tucker late field goal, record-setting field goal.
Yeah,
that was the last time they played Baltimore. Before that,
it would have been one of our first wins. In the Campbell era,
and that one was totally gutting too. So Lamar Jackson, especially with Derrick Henry, and probably we talked about the weapons a lot with Cleveland. That's probably their best set of weapons that Lamar has ever had. I've never really liked the criticism of Lamar where he does so many things, more things than the average quarterback with the run game, and he's improved his arm as he's gotten in. He's stayed pretty durable outside of the one season, and this is not an insult to Goff, but it's like Goff just has to manage that pocket. Lamar's managing a lot more with what he's able to do with the game typically, and his weapons have been subpar for a fair amount of his career, in my opinion. The running game that they make work when they had a combination of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins that was always getting hurt, and then they were
Justice Hill's around.
They were shuttling in Justice Hill with that. Now they've got Henry. They've got a very formidable running game between those two. They've got Zay Flowers. Hopkins is a little older, but he's a decent weapon.
Bateman. They extended.
Yeah, exactly.
They like him. He's a first round pick.
Yeah, those are all good weapons. So I feel like the fact that the Lions were able to, like you said, punch them in the mouth and kind of shut that group down, or at least hold them in check. I mean, they basically gave a narrative to Henry where now people are concerned about his fumble issues. I think that's a little overblown, but they did. That was a good punch out by Hutchinson, and they did dominate that game from a lot of facets.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best regular season victories I've watched. I mean, other than like the Goff walk-off win when they first got it, and I was impressed by their performance beginning to end.
It was a complete game performance, and it was nice to see after the first game, because I'll have to talk about this with somebody, but I'm curious about your take on it, Dan. It just seems like this strategy of the preseason and keeping all of the starters off, especially this year where they had to integrate two new linemen, especially on the interior. The interior was basically all new. Glasgow had been there, but he was moving positions to center. They had two new guards, and it seemed like that was the main thing that hurt them in that first game against the Packers. I'm curious what they're going to look like the next game against the Packers, but I do think that leads to slow starts.
No, there is something to that, because one of the things I saw was one of the reasons for the Colts hot start is they had a QB competition, so Daniel Jones had to play more. He was more prepped, ready to go. So they weren't surprised that they got off to the good start that they did. Whereas with the Lions, would they play one series? And
barely at all, yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think about that with Jones, because the Colts, we don't have them on the roster this year as the Lions. We talked to Chris Shepard last year because they played him. But yeah, Daniel Jones was a castaway. I think of him now because he was on the Vikings.
Right.
The Vikings could have had him. Now they're playing Carson Wentz. They had Sam Howell, Daniel Jones, and obviously Sam Darnold all on their roster at some point in the last 6 months. And now they've got Carson Wentz as their starter. So I'm sure they would have rather had one of those guys, especially Jones, who's looked good.
Yeah, I think they could do more on offense if they had him, because he knows how to read the defense. He's got more experience doing it. McCarthy has all the talent in the world, but I don't know if he's ready to take over a 14 or 15 win team. I forget what it was last year.
Yeah, it was 14 because they lost the last game to the Lions and ended up 14-3. But I'm curious to see when he gets back, because the big loss for them too was Darisaw. They didn't have Darisaw those first couple weeks, their star left tackle, and so I'm curious to see what he looks like. But it is interesting to think that those quarterbacks were all there and now they're gone. But I'm glad we covered the Ravens. This has been a great segment. I'm gonna want Dan on the show more now and make him talk more. I don't know how he's going to feel about that.
It's fine.
But he's clearly excited. He's trying to measure his excitement here, folks. But we're going to bring him back because I'm sure people are kind of yelling at me through the radio and saying, wait a minute, you've spent an hour and 45 minutes. That we have a Detroit team that just made the playoffs. But it was a good result. They made the playoffs. I know we have a tendency to look at things comparatively. So people were looking at it like they had the division won. They were close. The magic number was very close. And then obviously they ended up losing. But as I tend to do on this show, I actually am more positive about this result than most. I get it. You want to win the division. You make your path a lot easier if you win the division, especially if you can get those buys. That's where it really comes in handy. That's where you make your path infinitely easier. But there's certain things in baseball. You've been watching baseball for a long time. I've been following baseball for a long time. You've got the law of averages, but you've also got the law of continuity. And in baseball, I think the law of averages is more applicable. You can't keep winning games in perpetuity. There's going to be something that hits. And right now, Cleveland is a team that has been winning a ton of games in a row. Their last 20 games or so, the sample set is so much in their favor. Mm-hmm. The Tigers are the inverse of that.
Correct.
In the next 3 games, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that may flip around a little bit.
No, they can very easily take 2 from the Indians. I mean, the Indians have the lowest on-base percentage of any team to ever make the playoffs. I mean, they win in the weird singles, wild pitches. I mean, I'd hate to call it luck, but it almost feels like luck. And it all went their way. It happened for the Tigers in the first half, so why can't it happen in 2 games out of 3?
Especially, yeah, exactly. Especially because it seems like both teams are due to flip around. It does seem like Cleveland is due to flip a little bit. I mean, some of those, I'm thinking of certain plays. You had the obvious game where they had the 3 hits that didn't even go out of the infield.
Right.
And then they ended up winning that game. And really, the Tigers played a better game overall. It's just that inning kind of unraveled, and then you had...
Was that the Skubal between the legs flip to first?
He had the flip, and then he hit the guy in the face, and that clearly threw him off. There's a conspiracy theory going around apparently that Skubal is attempting to throw games.
Why would he?
Right, and anybody that watched that game, it made total sense. He was clearly shaken up after hitting a guy directly in the face with his powerful fastball, and then they had all of those. He couldn't control those weird bounces in the infield. The between the legs thing was probably regrettable. I don't think
he was trying to make a hero play.
Yeah,
he should have just made the baseball play.
Yeah, he probably had enough time to turn around and flip it to first. But in the moment, we talk about that stuff a lot on the show. In the moment, it's easier to look at that on TV and think, why didn't you do that? In the split-second decision-making process of a pitcher that's just pitched a ball, and then going over to field it, that's a little harder to process in time.
Yeah, I give him a free pass on that. I mean, his numbers against the Indians, like, I forget, he's like a .34 ERA in his last 4 appearances or something like that. It's unreal. So, I mean, he's not trying to let them win. He just... Baseball happens.
Exactly. And in between that one, I remember there was one where they kind of flipped the ball into the outfield and that landed and that kind of undid that game. So I do think that I know that these guys' splits over the course of the year have been up and down. You got Skubal, who, I mean, rock solid. Right. Obviously, he's basically the pitcher you would want on any team for the number 1 guy. So that spot is set. Then you've got Mize and Flaherty. I understand that Mize had a better first half, but he also has been one of the players that's been trending up over the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, he struck out like 9 his last game. He looked good. If I was setting it, I would pitch Mize in game 2, let Flaherty, if Flaherty's on his hot streak, and then have the shortest leash ever and not let him have his blow-up inning. If in the fourth inning he gives up 2 base runners, I'm pulling him.
I think that's a great point because that's basically where I was going. You got those 3, and I know it doesn't seem this way given how things have ended up, but I do think that in a 3-game series, the bullpen is about as deep as it has been for the Tigers this year with the pieces that they added, with the guys that you're then essentially jettisoned to the bullpen, like a Melton, a guy that can come in and say like, okay, Flaherty's struggling. We got to go all out. We got to win this game 3.
People out, and he's got good stuff. I mean, he's not been perfect, but he's a rookie who's held himself up very well. I would say I trust Holton, Vest, Finnegan, and Melton to an extent in a big moment. I'd try to stay away from Montero unless we're up 10-1 or, Brant Herter's been okay, but again, it's only 1 game. You're not extending it out to a 162 game season. These guys can rest for 6 months or 3 months before spring training.
Exactly. And you have to take some solace in the fact that I assume you met Rafael Montero. Obviously got Cater Montero in there
he
too.
Could come out too because he's got good stuff. He's put up some 2 big starts that I remember in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, he's had a good run of it, and Rafael has been up and down, but he does have some playoff and World Series experience. It's limited. They've kind of expanded that to more than it actually is. But the other guy that's in there is Seawald. I know we haven't seen a lot of him, but he's a guy that's he's had some very high-end experience as well in the playoffs as a setup guy, so he could be a high leverage guy. I don't know what Hinch's trust level is with him. To your point,
the stuff he's bringing out in a high leverage situation, I don't want to see. I don't want to see a 91 mile an hour fastball with the bases loaded. Like, I get it, but
that's kind of the issue with the Tigers as a whole. Even the guys you're talking about
don't have the strikeout.
Yeah, when you got to even Finnegan, that was why he wasn't as costly as some of the other relievers in the process, because he's not really a swing and miss guy, quote unquote, as much as some of those other. You see some of these guys come out of the bullpen. The Spider comes to mind. He comes out of there, and he's throwing. You can't even see the ball.
About Chapman?
No,
the Spider.
No, that's the guy. I think he got traded to the Mets. I'm gapping on his name, but he comes out to a whole theme. But there's a bunch of guys. You got Chapman. You got Duran, who hasn't been playing for Cleveland, but you've got a lot of these high leverage guys that aren't necessarily probably are above the Tigers' quality of pitcher, but you do trust them. It's like Vest. He throws hard. He's not. I don't know that anybody would consider him swing and miss.
No, but he's more likely to do it than most of the team guys they trot out. So
and then the other guy that we haven't mentioned is Canely. That's been the real.
I don't want to see him.
Okay, because he's had basically 2 different seasons. The beginning part of the season was very good. His extended numbers were not as good. Like he was getting hard hit balls, but they were just getting caught. So when you look at kind of the extrapolated out numbers, they weren't as kind. And then that came true at the beginning of or at the end of the year. But then he kind of regained form a little bit.
I know it worked 2 years ago when he threw like 32 straight changeups, but I just don't know how hard it is for a big league hitter at this stage to just be like, well, he throws 80% changeups. I'm just going to sit back.
Oh, yeah. It's hard when, because even in the modern day, obviously you had Mariano Rivera who did that with unprecedented expertise, but it's really hard in the modern day game to just basically have even 2 pitches. And I'm saying 2 with like an asterisk for Canely, because that fastball is basically just to give somebody a different profile. It's not used very often at all.
Yeah, no, it probably works when you're ahead in the count, and I know it does. He's been an effective big league reliever. I just don't think he has the feel for the dangerous changeup that he had when he was in New York right now, and I just don't really trust him. The season's on the line.
Exactly, and we'll have to see who they use. The bullpen usage is going to be huge, as it normally is. But there's the Tigers preview.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, West Michigan Eye Care Associates, Eric Hall, DDS, Calder Financial Group, Grand Management, Rydan Investments, JH Realty Partners, and Encore Business Group. Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh airs live Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern on Jethro FM.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.